Hello and welcome to the video where we are talking about how to hook up menus so that you can make a start screen and a death screen and a successful dungeon escape scene. So before we get started, you will need to go to Canvas and download the ChangeScene script. I already have it downloaded and it is in my scripts folder, so I have it here. The first thing we're going to want to do to make a start screen is to make a new scene for us to work in. Now, if you have been working in the default sample scene in Unity, I always think it's nice to rename this to be something a little bit more descriptive. So I'm going to make sure that I have saved, file save, so that there's no little asterisk here. And then I'm going to go down to my scene here, right click and say rename, and I'm going to rename this to game. Now I'm going to make a new scene, create scene, and we'll name this start. So I'm going to open up my start scene and let's get started. So in order to create our start menu, we're going to be working with the UI, and all UI elements are placed within a canvas. So if I hit the plus button in my hierarchy, go to UI, canvas, it's going to create this really big canvas off to the side here. Now, don't worry about it being real big and off to the side. Canvas space, like UI space, is a little different than world space, which is where we've been placing our tile maps and stuff. So basically you can think about it as this is the size of the camera that is looking into our scene, and everything that we place in here is overlaid on top of the camera. So this is like the HUD that is being placed on top of the world. It's not the world itself. So that's why it's like real big and over here. You can kind of see how this works, where if you change the aspect ratio of your camera, the size of the canvas changes. So you can see the connection between these two things here. Now, in order to place elements into our canvas, we're going to go back to this plus menu, UI, and I'm going to start with an image. We also are going to do text and buttons. Now, I'm going to place an image down, and when you place images onto your canvas, what we want to do is, first of all, we want to make sure that our canvas is scaling with the size of our screen. So that's just one little change here in the canvas. If you are using an aspect ratio for your scene and not a set pixel size, I want you to go to your canvas scaler and change the UI scale mode from constant pixel size to scale with screen size here. So that'll make sure that when your game camera gets bigger or smaller as you change the size of the window, your canvas will follow along with that. Okay, so our image that we've placed down, this is a sprite. So if you have made some pixel art, or if you have an image you want to use, you'll need to import that image into your Unity and save it as a sprite. So just a single sprite, not a multiple sprite. And the image, you can set the source image to be whatever sprite you want it to be. So I'm going to click this little navigation button here, and I'm going to set my image here to be, I think I'll set it to be the little character that's in our game. So he'll be in our start menu, and then I can move this image around on the canvas in just the same way that I move around everything else with the move tool. On our camera, I'm going to take a minute and make the background color of the camera match the color of the sprite, just so it kind of looks nice. So I'm going to come over here and select that color. All right, that's much better. So we have a little image on our canvas. I'm also going to make some text, so I'll hit the plus button, UI, text. And note how it's like really, really small, and like the text box is tiny, tiny. What I can do here is I can change the width of the box. So maybe I'll set it to like 600, something like that. That's pretty wide. And I'll set the height to be like 100. I think that box is big enough. And I'll make my font size. If you scroll a little bit down in the inspector under the, you'll find the text component, and you can change what the text says. And we can change this to Adventure Time. Change our font size to be a little bigger so we can actually see it. We can change the font color, maybe like a white. We can change the bold, italic, you know, we can, yeah, really have fun with our styling here. And then you'll note that the default font is Arial, which isn't like that exciting, but if I wanted to use a different font, I would actually have to download a font file from like the internet or something, or find a font file from my computer and actually drag it into my assets folder. And so I'm just, for now, just gonna leave it as Arial. Okay, so there's my text. Now I'm also gonna create a button, which is the thing that we will click to move to the game scene. Now, the default sprite for a button is just this kind of plain white box, but I can play with that a little bit if I want, but first I'm going to show you how to work with just the default white one. So I'm going to change this width to be maybe like a 250 and the height to be like an 80 maybe. That seems nice. And I'm going to also change the text on the inside to be something other than just button. So on our button, note how there's a little drop down here. Underneath the button is the text that is on the button. So we can change this to be like, oh, let's go. And maybe I'll make that a little bigger, like that. Now, on the button itself, there's a few kind of fun interaction things. So there's, when you click on the button, you know, you don't want it to just like stay white and just like be like that. But maybe when you put your mouse over it, it can change to be a slightly different color so that it indicates to you that it is interactive. So I'm going to change the highlight color, and I'm going to use the eyedropper and pick a little color from my character so that when I mouse over, it changes to match the color of his skin. And then the pressed color, so when I click on it, that's a different color that it can turn. So I'll use the same eyedropper and kind of pick a slightly different color. Now, the button won't do anything when I click on it right now, but at the very least I can take a look. So let me hit play and check this out. So if I mouse over the button, it kind of turns that orange color, very fun. And then when I click it, it'll turn that darker brown. So that's nice that the colors all kind of match up now. If you wanted to draw your own buttons out of sprites and you kind of illustrate the lettering and everything, you can change the source image of the button to be whatever sprite you want. So I could actually make the button be a sprite from my game. So I could maybe, you know, I could make it be something like this, or I didn't draw my own button specifically, so I don't have one, but I could if I wanted to. I could use it. So I'm going to just leave it back as the default, but you could select your own sprite. And if you wanted to do that, you could make a slightly different sprite, like the same sprite, but a slightly different color if you wanted, or maybe it's a button that looked like it got pressed, and instead of the color tint, you could use a sprite swap so that when you click on this, when you mouse over the sprite, it changes to a slightly different sprite here. And if you press the sprite, it changes to a slightly different sprite here. So instead of changing color, it just swaps out the sprite that you're using to display the button. So you can do that if you would like to make your own artwork. I'm going to go back to color tint though. So by default, the button doesn't do anything. So we need to hook up this on-click function so that when we click it, it does something. Now I want to, in order to hook something up to this on-click, I need to make a game object that has our scene changer script on it so that when the button gets clicked, it can look at that game object and say, hey, what's that function that you want me to call? Oh, okay, I'll change my scene. So let's make an empty game object. We'll hit the plus button here, create empty, and we'll call this scene changer. Now, the only thing we need to put onto the scene changer is that change scene script. So I'm going to take my scene changer and add my change scene script to it. Now, if we look at the scene changer script, our public function is called goToScene, and it has an argument in the function, which means when we call it, we need to give it a string that is the scene name. So we need to give it some letters that are equal to the name of the scene that we want it to change to. So we have to keep that in mind. So now that we have our scene changer object on our button, I'm going to go down to the on click, and I'm going to add a thing that will happen when it gets clicked. Add to the list. Now it's looking for that game object, so I'm going to take our scene changer object and drop it in. And now I need to tell it on the scene changer, what function do you want it to call? So the function I want it to call is in the change scene script, and it is that function called goToScene. Now you remember, we need to pass an argument in here. So we're going to give it the name of our game scene, which we very handily renamed to be game. Just like that. So that's how you hook up a button. The last step is to make sure that Unity knows about all the different scenes that you're using in your game. So we have to put them into our build settings. So if I open up my build settings, it's under File, Build Settings. By default, it only knows about that game scene because that was the first one that we were working on. So I need to tell Unity about my start menu scene. And I'm going to drag that in, but I'm going to put it in above my game scene so that when I hit play for the first time, when I open the game up, the start menu is the one that shows up first. Now, because they're both in the build, now they know about each other, so we can switch between them. So I'm going to close my build settings now. So with the button hooked up and this variable fills in correctly, if I hit play in my start menu, what I can do is hit that let's go button, and it's going to take me to the game. And I can start playing. Awesome. So while we're still working on our menus, I'm just going to quickly save a little bit of time by duplicating our start menu to create our death menu and our success menu. This will be much easier because we've already got it all hooked up. It'll be much easier to just duplicate it and make some small edits than it will be to make the other scenes from scratch. So my start menu, I'm going to select it and hit Command D, and then I'm going to rename this to be death. And then I'm going to hit Command D on death and rename that to be success. So I'm also going to, while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to add these to my build settings. So we have our death scene and we have our success scene. I'm just going to drag those in at the end after the game scene. All right. Now, so I'm going to, before I go and edit these, I'm going to save my start menu. And now I can go in and start to edit my death menu. Okay, oh no, wait. I think I duplicated them before I saved the start menu. Okay, wait, let's do that again real quick. I'm gonna delete these, go back to my start menu. Okay, duplicate, rename, death. Let's just double check that we did that correctly. Double check. Okay, yeah, death now has stuff in it. Okay, duplicate, and then we'll rename this as success, and quickly double check that our build settings still has stuff in it. See, we deleted these. So I'll drag in death and success. I got rid of the deleted ones by just clicking them and hitting the delete button on my keyboard. All right, okay. We did it correctly the second time. All right. So in our death scene, the thing in the game scene that can kill you is the little rat. So I'm going to change my image to be the little rat because that's kind of fun. There's that rat sprite right here, cute little rat. And I'll change the text to say, oh no, you died, sad face. And then I'll change the button text to be try again. And now we still want the button to go to the game scene, so we'll just leave that the way that it is. And maybe I'll change the background of the main camera to be like a red, you know, like a little bit intense color. Maybe, you know, you can figure it out. Oh no, you died. And I will save that, and I'll go to our success scene, and let's change the image to maybe be the sword. We'll say that maybe. Let's go find the sword. Sword, where are you? Oh, there's the pickaxe. Sword's gotta be around here somewhere. I wish I renamed my sprites. Oh man. Okay. There's the sword. Okay. And then we can change the text to be congrats. You did it. Now, I typed a little bit too much. It kind of overran my text box, but that's okay. I can just make the width a little bit bigger, maybe like 800. And I can position it so that this is in the center again. And we could make the button say play again. Something like that. And just the same as before, we're going to leave the button alone so that it will go back to the game view when we click on it. So I'm just going to leave it just like that. So that saved a lot of time. I only had to set up one button, and then I can just duplicate it and use it 3 times. Okay, so I am going to leave this video here, and in the next one I'm going to show you how to make the game scene transition to the death or success scene depending on what happens in your game.